This is one of the tactics from the shutdown. They installed an algorithm to have their own Google moderators come in. Please share this video. I'm going to keep it really short. Google has moderators coming into your stream and regulating your subscribers' comments in the live chat. Whew. This is just the beginning, guys. Be very careful. Be very vigilant.
Ephesians 6. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world.
Musk plans to buy $20 million in common shares of Tesla during the next open trading window. The company plans to issue the stock and then sell it to Musk. And I assume they mean 20. Is
that on his Twitter feed, or is this somewhere else?
I don't know, but I assume it's 20. It didn't really specify. $20 million worth.
Worth of
$20 million worth of Tesla stock.
Certainly by
SEC filing, not on Twitter.
Right.
SEC, because he could certainly buy 20 million shares, I think, too. Although that'd be
a lot more.
That'd be a lot more.
He already has a huge
more.
exposure to it, and has borrowed against some of those shares. It's kind of interesting to think that he's going to buy more under that scenario.
He might be. I mean, he might. I imagine is continuing to borrow money for some shares to buy more shares.
Or to borrow against his existing shares to do it, which has been part of the case the shorts have put out, which have said, look out, if it falls below certain levels, he owns X amount of it, has borrowed against X amount of it, and will have to put up or get rid of something. I mean, that's a kind of a bizarre.
Sounds like a lot. Be like one of us buying, $500-600 worth of Comcast, maybe.
Facebook giving an update on the hack it revealed 2 weeks ago, now saying that 30 million users had their accounts accessed rather than the 50 million the company originally reported. Facebook saying that for 15 million people, attackers accessed names and contact details such as phone numbers or email. And for 14 million people, the attackers also accessed other details on their profiles, such as their relationship status, religion, hometown, and birth date, plus the last 10 places they checked into or were tagged. Now, for 1 million people, the hackers didn't actually access any information. Now, as for what the hackers' intention was with this hack or what countries they were tied to, Facebook said no comment. They can't comment because they're continuing to work with the FBI, which has asked them not to disclose those details. Now, Facebook is alerting everyone who was affected and advising them on how to protect themselves from attempts to exploit the stolen data. It also has a help center so people can quickly check and see if their information was accessed. The company says there's no evidence that any credit card information was stolen.
1 John 5. And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. Ephesians 6. Against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked.
There'll be a wall here that funnels people over to this area where you're going to be greeted by a canista.
If that term for an employee reminds you of another big brand, you're not alone. Fire and Flower wants to be the Canadian cannabis reference. Back in June, those big plans were already there, even if the retail spaces were not. The challenges were there too, not just physical construction, but building a legal market from scratch.
I think that we have enough information now, certainly from other jurisdictions that have legalized, like Colorado or Washington, where the demographics are fairly similar, that we have some confidence that this is going to translate.
Fencot's big bet that Canadians will look to be educated about marijuana. Fire and Flower are training staff to answer customers' questions. The company's had to roll with some punches. Construction is on hiatus at this location as it tries to sort out a roadblock with the city of Edmonton. When we next catch up with Fire and Flower, it's at another spot. Industry watchers say it's anyone's guess who will come out on top in this new sector.
The way Starbucks is kind of dominating the coffee business throughout North America, the retailers want to do the same kind of thing in the cannabis space.
Unlike coffee, there are extra precautions. At this concept store, Fire and Flower shows us how their weed will be stored, away from the public. The storefront reserved for that educational space and mostly non-marijuana products. 4 stores will be ready on launch day in Alberta and Saskatchewan, a far cry from Fencot's ambition for hundreds in much of Canada. But in the few months CBC has been following Fire and Flower, opportunities have opened up, with Ontario's new government welcoming private business.
We're going to have to keep opening stores. So as soon as we finish the first batch, we're going to move on to the second and the third and the fourth.
The paint's set on the walls now, the shelves are stacked. There is one big question left. Who will show up when doors open tomorrow? Rafi Bujikani, CBC News, Edmonton.
1 Corinthians 6. All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Meats for the belly, and the belly for meats, but God shall destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body.
Syria's ambassador to the UN has slammed U.S.-led coalition for perpetrating crimes and supporting terrorism in Syria.
It is now clear for everyone that this coalition has fought everything but terrorism. Its practices prove that its targets and its goals are in harmony with the goals of terrorist groups. It has sown chaos, death, and destruction. It has defied the state authority, and it has assisted ISIL elements, moving them to the eastern part of the Euphrates to carry out its aggressions in Syria.
Jafferty called on the Security Council to launch an investigation into the crimes. He described the U.S.-led airstrikes on the country as illegal and a flagrant violation of international laws. The Syrian envoy to the UN said in one instance, the U.S. used internationally banned phosphorus bombs in its raids on Deir el-Zor province on the 13th and 14th of October, leaving women and children dead. Jafferty also called for an immediate end of the presence of U.S. forces in Syria. Regarding Idlib, he said any Syrian territory will inevitably return to the control of the government. He stressed that Nusra Front terrorists refuse to comply with agreements on Idlib and want to continue the bloodshed. Max Egan is a radio host and political commentator who joins us from Brisbane. Sorry about that. Okay. Very good. Glad I got Brisbane right. We have heard words of caution from Bashar al-Jafari throughout the years and warnings about what the U.S. has done, what its allies have done. But I'm curious why the UN did not take them seriously when a majority of them, if not all of them, have actually been true.
Well, it's because of who controls the UN. I mean, a lot of people are scared to say what they want to say in the UN in case they get veto or in case they get sanctions put against them. But it's no surprise that people would be saying this because it's absolutely true. I mean, when looking at the war, the conflict in Syria, people need to cast their minds back and remember the United States wanted to invade Syria and there was a world outcry which prevented them from doing that. And then just coincidentally, straight away after the world prevented them from doing it, suddenly there is a terrorist group in Syria which wants to overthrow the government. You know, the people in Syria, you can't even rightfully call them terrorists, even though they are carrying out terror activity. What they are really, more rightly, they should be called, is a Western-backed mercenary force which was sent in there to overthrow the Syrian government. I mean, the United States has been referring to them as moderate rebels all the time and seeking to back them as freedom fighters. And this should let people know exactly what's been going on. The whole conflict in Syria has been contrived and backed and Western run right from the beginning.
Another thing that he said, along with the Russian ambassador, I must say, is the presence of U.S. forces on their soil, also French and I guess forces from the UK. Perhaps special operatives is a better term, more appropriate term. And this is violating their sovereignty. Why doesn't the UN decide on that when it comes to foreign forces who are not invited by the Syrian government on their soil?
Well, again, it's because of who controls the UN. You know, the UN is a puppet show. It's more of a united dictatorship than anything else. It's got all the nations combined at this one group. They have to do what the people who have the power of veto say. So even if they did make a decision to do something about it, the United States and Israel would just veto the decision. So what's the point of doing it? I mean, the UN is a toothless tiger. It could be something worthwhile if it was actually a United Nations where everyone had equal say. But if that were to happen, I would suggest that Israel and the United States would be thrown out straight away, and these countries would have sanctions put against them. That's why nothing ever gets done. The UN is just there to provide the theatre for the people, so we think we have this united body which is actually going to do something, but it won't, because it can't, because of who controls it.
Thank you for that. Max Egan, radio host and political commentator from Brisbane.
Matthew 24. And ye shall hear of wars, and rumours of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved.